I don't care how smart you are, you're going to make mistakes on tests. Not because you don't understand the course content, but because that's how humans work. If anything, there's a bell curve. Once you hit a certain intelligence, anything beyond that is a hindrance and often harms accuracy. If you're like me, you study hard for a maths unit and you pass the test with flying colours, a solid 47 out of 50A. But deep down it hurts. You find out what you got wrong. You missed a minus sign. You accidentally flipped a fraction. You overlooked a specific word in the question and didn't answer actually what it wanted. There's a secret sauce to getting 50 out of 50A plus instead. Let's break it down into 5 strategies that you can use to stop dropping these careless marks. Number 1, self-talk. I don't mean that corny motivation and confidence, I mean literally saying what you're doing. It doesn't even have to be aloud. Say you had a calculus question. Tell yourself, I'm going to raise this x by a power and divide the function by this new number. This is because of the power rule. It sounds silly, but I personally find it actually verbalizing or communicating what I'm doing through a medium other than simply thinking it actually reframes it in a new light, and I can catch myself out before I make an absurd claim that, when verbalized, I can see it's very obviously ridiculous. Number 2, write everything out, nice and neat, but just write everything. On a real test, they don't mark you down for your working out. That's absurd. If you were given a bunch of words in a maths test, deconstruct those words into the variables and the values you're given. Write them in a neat little list. Write a variable for what you want to find. Try and figure out an equation that uses what you were given. If you want to follow a line of thinking, maybe use a known equation or rule. Write it out. Your pen is your vessel for putting the collective knowledge of our humanity on paper. It's wisdom. Our forefathers didn't die for you to do all the working in your head. And this little bit is forgotten halfway through. This bit you aren't 100% sure about. And then you get to the end, realize the question is not the way, and you need to start again. Half of it might be good. So to not start from scratch, write out what you think. If you're given scrap paper, use it liberally. I used to go through about a whole page of it at least through each test, and you should too. All of your thoughts should be on paper. I should be able to reconstruct every single thought you had during the whole test. Number 3, check your notes. Now that you've written everything out nice and neatly, line after line, not next to each other, not willy-nilly, but new line after new line, new line again and again, each new thought and step in working out. I want you to go back to the top and read it as if you were the marker. Read it and be the devil's advocate. Be the one to break apart the argument. Tell your past self that it's wrong. But how? Find out everything that doesn't make sense, isn't clear, or is a little bit ambiguous still. Ambiguity is loved by the student because they think they can squeak by in a question by luckily guessing the right answer and pretending they know how to reach it, and kind of airy-fairy sort of explain it, but keep it vague so the teacher doesn't think less of them. It's a performative action, so it doesn't really have any value for knowledge retention and is rarely 100% correct. So read through it. You should be able to be a grandma with zero maths knowledge. No disrespect to my grannies out there, but you should be able to teach it to someone who has no care or interest in maths, and they still agree, yep, this makes intuitive sense, not just academic sense. Number 4, no spare time. If you have 200 minutes for the test, spend 200 minutes on it, but don't do an appraisal of each question. You should start the test on question 1 and work your way through cover to cover. If you're particularly stuck on a question, go to the next until you've finished the booklet. Once you are satisfied with your answers in the questions you've answered, go back to the beginning. Flip until there's an unanswered question. A majority of tests nowadays do not remove points for wrong answers, which was stupid anyway, because an unanswered question is as good as a wrong one. And so even any attempt can often give you partial credit for questions with multiple points up for offer. Keep going through the book repeatedly until everything has some semblance of an answer. Mark anything you are on the fence about with a star, a symbol, or some other indicator you know. Once everything has a point, you should go back to these stars and use a calculator. Do some offshoot working out for an alternative pathway you considered, or just read it aloud in your head at least if in test conditions. To reframe it, is it still correct? After you're happy with all your answers, go back to question 1 and break out that calculator. Put all the arithmetic, all the working out, all the numbers into the calculator and make sure they're accurate. Does the answer sound about right? If you're falling off a cliff at 5 trillion meters per second, I can say confidently you're probably doing something wrong. If by now you only have 10 minutes left, do not skim. Skimming is bad. Very, very bad. I would rather not get to a question in my editing than look at it briefly. This is because skimming often opens up to error and careless mistakes in confusion and ambiguity and being rushed, not becoming zoned back into each individual question. Start at one and look through it thoroughly and thoughtfully. Once you're happy, move on. If you do every question, go back to one, do it again. If you don't get to all of them, don't worry, but you should spend 200 minutes by now. And even though this seems tedious, your future self who obtained a GPA of 5.0 and secures their dream job for 40 years will thank your efforts. Number 5. Eyes on the prize. You're not a performer, you're not a teacher. You're a student and a test taker. This is not some preaching about positive attitude or confidence. Those are positive things, don't get me wrong, but there are a multitude of videos who miss the forest for the trees. They talk about your attitude and your mind, but they don't actually give you constructive feedback and advice on how to do better. But it is good to say you're not trying to please the assessor. Maths, science are cold, inert, and uncaring. 1 + 1 still equals 2, whether you or the teacher like it or not. Whether it is pretty or whether the teacher spent time making the test questions sound correct or not. As an engineer, you won't be given a question that eventually collapses into whole round numbers. You could try to be given a curveball that ends in 10.962334 and that's the correct answer, full stop. Don't try to find something the teacher's looking for. Don't try and find the right answer. Don't try to impress the teacher, impress the students. Answer what is asked. Do not go over the top to brag about your maths knowledge. I don't care. No one cares. No one is going to be impressed by your test-taking ability to go beyond what is asked for of you for no reason, essentially expending more energy, and you only look even more a fool if you do get something simple wrong. Positive attitude is a wonderful thing, but you're letting the numbers speak for themselves. They don't care about the teachers, students, or even your feelings. They're unchanging, will always be correct and exact, and you should leave the talking up to them. So these 5 strategies have personally worked for me, and I want to bestow this information to you in hope that this video helps someone go from an already excellent 47 out of 50 A to a 50 out of 50 A+. But as always, it isn't that deep, and you won't be barred from university for losing 3 marks. But it's nice not to drop them. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time.